The USS Mianatonomoh was the lead ship of her class of ironclad monitors built for the Union Navy during the American Civil War. She was named after Mianatomoh, the chief of the Narragansett. Apologies. She was laid down in 1862 in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, launched on August 15, 1863, and commissioned too late to take part in the war on September 15, 1865. She sailed under the command of Daniel Amon? I don't know. With the North Atlantic Squadron, and made a brief cruise along the east coast of the U.S. before being decommissioned in Washington Naval Yard. In April 1866, she steamed to New York and was overhauled there in preparation for a voyage across the Atlantic on a diplomatic visit to Russia, presumably shoring up watertight areas and adding wooden freeboard pieces after having seen what happened to USS Monitor when it sailed out of sight of the American coast in 1862. Under the command of John Beaumont, she departed on May 6 with the paddle steamers Augusta and Ocelot, escorting her, and presumably there to rescue any survivors when the Monitor would, in theory, probably to the fear of everyone, inevitably sink. But it didn't. The ship stopped briefly in Halifax and then headed for Newfoundland, embarking Assistant Secretary of the Navy Gustavus Fox on June 3rd, along with the British Naval Attaché Captain John Bethese. I don't know. In St. John. So why was the trip occurring? Well, the nominal reason for the voyage was an instruction by Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles that Fox was to deliver to Tsar Alexander II of Russia a copy of a joint resolution of Congress which expressed deep regret at the recent attempt by Dmitry Karakazov on the Tsar's life and congratulated him on not dying. The voyage was also intended to reciprocate the lengthy visits by squadrons of the Imperial Russian Navy to the U.S. during the Civil War and enhance the U.S. among European powers. But what Welles really wanted Fox to do was to see what was going on in naval development in Europe. Departing St. John's on June 5th, the three ships crossed the Atlantic in 11 days, marking it as the first transatlantic voyage of an ironclad monitor, and Fox reported it was a pleasant trip, despite for the most of it being under tow by the Augusta as a matter of convenience and precaution rather than necessity. Considering the fate of the Monitor in 1862, walking the Mianatonomoh like a dog across the Atlantic probably wasn't a bad idea, though this might have been due to coal shortage. Bethese, I still don't know how to say his name, thought the weather was mostly fine to test the seaworthiness of the Monitor, though I'm sure the crew was not particularly bothered by not wanting to test the design improvements on the ship over its progenitor, considering what had happened to it. He further mentioned the interior stayed very dry. She reached Queenstown on June 16th, where she was met by the ironclad Achilles and Black Prince, and proceeded to Portsmouth, arriving on the 23rd. Mianatonomoh was the object of great curiosity by British newspapers, reporters, and, well, pretty much the public, and they were allowed to publish their impressions as well as tours from Beaumont, Bethese, and Fox, given to the Board of the Admiralty of the Interior, particularly the Ericsson turret. Cowper Coles was also there to see it. Coles, of course, is the one who designed the British pattern turret and the ill-fated HMS Captain. On June 29th, she set sail for France, her Dahlgrens fired for the spectators. Upon arrival at Cherbourg, Fox disembarked for ultimately fruitless talks with Napoleon III. She returned to England on July 7th to host more visitors, including the Prince of Wales and his brother, the Duke of Edinburgh. This success with tourists, akin to a rock star of the mid-19th century, if rock stars were several thousand-ton warships, would carry over on the continent. She sailed for Denmark later that month, being expected by King Christian the IX and his family before heading to Russia. She rendezvoused with the large contingent of the Imperial Russian ships, including the armored frigates Sevastopol and Nitrominia, and their own monitors, Smerch, and 4 Uragan-class monitors at Helsingfors, which escorted her to Kronstadt, arriving on August 5th. And yes, if you're wondering, my narration hasn't gotten better. She was viewed by the Tsar, his family, and several naval officers, including Naval Architect Rear Admiral Andrei Popov, who later traveled to Cherbourg from Hamburg on her. She ferried Fox to Stockholm in mid-September, then Kiel in Prussia on the 1st of October. Over the next 6 months, she called at French, Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian ports before departing Gibraltar with Augusta for Philadelphia via the Canary, Cape Verde, and Caribbean ports. When she arrived stateside, she had completed a cruise of more than 17,700 nautical miles, almost as far as the Russian 2nd Pacific Squadron a half a century later, but without sinking or starting a major diplomatic incident. Quite a feat for a monitor sailing the same distance as a trip from the Baltic to Japan via Africa. Especially a Civil War era monitor that was an evolution of a design that had gone about, a stone's throw away from sight from the American coastline and then promptly sank. She was decommissioned 4 days later. With Captain Robert Schufelt in command, she was recommissioned for service in the North Atlantic Squadron on November 15, 1869, and was part of Admiral David Farragut's force that escorted the HMS Monarch to Portland, Maine, as mentioned in the previous video. She remained on active duty until July 28, 1870, when she was decommissioned in Boston. She was repaired, but suspiciously she came out a full iron hull, bigger, and looking nothing like she had been before, essentially being a new ship, and a suspiciously Mianatomoh-shaped vessel appeared in the scrapyard. Yeah, you all know what happened. Anyway, again, sorry for the poor narration. I'm trying to narrate a bunch of videos fairly quickly. So, yeah. But anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.